Good afternoon, Canes fans. Peter Ariz here, bring you a special afternoon edition of Canes Insight Live. Going to bring on one of our favorite guests here, one of our regulars on the Canes Insight channel, the great Steve K9 Kane Kim. My friend Steve, we've been waiting for this for a week plus. We've already talked about Darian Mensah. It's official now. He's enrolled in school. He's brought his buddy Cooper Barcade along. And I actually mentioned on the show yesterday, you've been firing off some tweets already with some high expectations of this team. How are you feeling this afternoon? This morning, I guess, still over on the West Coast for you.
I'm feeling great. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I wake up this morning. I usually wake up on Thursday since I need to do Coach JB's at about 5:15, hit a workout. Then I go to the various shows that I'm on. So one of the things that I got on my Samsung, yes, Samsung, I'm Korean, sue me. So anyway, so I get an update. And it's from Canes Insight. And it's one of the clips. And it says, Jared Pringle hits the portal. And I'm thinking, oh, God. So my first reaction was, well, the portal giveth, the portal taketh, and I guess the portal taketh here. So my immediate thought was, well, with Jordan Isle coming back, I guess 3 is a crowd, 4 is too many. Maybe, you've seen this happen where Pringle says, you know what, I'm out. So I said, let me just get the bad news. So I'm kind of laying down, and I click on the link. It turns out it's the clip we did last week when Pringle was in the thing. So good news. We still got a full loaded backfield. I find this interesting. I would say that even during the week of the Indiana game, now, to be fair to the staff, there were other priorities at that time. There were some concerns that, hey, what's going on in the portal? Who's going to be our quarterback? Are we getting the guys? This, and that. Overall, once again, I think Mario Cristobal and his staff have proven they will not be outworked. There is no excuse. And overall, if you take a look at what they got into the portal and what they lost from it, and you look at the overall ratings from guys who do this for a living, once again, it looks like the Miami Hurricanes did very well in this portal cycle.
And Steve, I saw your spot you were on with on the Coach JB show and Smitty, and you talked about it just before we get into the offense and what we think it could look like here with Darian Mensah. Your thoughts on the process on how everything played out with Mensah? You kind of on that spot said, well, I've been saying, don't blame Miami, blame the system. But I kind of wanted to hear what you thought.
The system is the system. Look, I give Dabo Swinney credit in a sense that he laid it out. And I think the one thing is with him, whether you would love him or hate him, he's probably the one guy that does not, quote unquote, back channel or tamper, which is probably the one reason why he could be that guy that's so out front. But everyone is doing it. Now Fresno State has some issues with Ole Miss in relationship to a wide receiver. The game is the game. The system is the system. And as long as everybody is operating on the same level playing field, I can handle it, because in the past, it was not. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes of all time from Charlie Francis, the track coach who engineered Ben Johnson's gold medal, which was eventually stripped in the 1988 Summer Olympics when he pulled away from Carl Lewis. And he said something that was so incredibly honest that it was almost too blunt for people to take. In other words, he was saying, what Ben Johnson did is what everyone's doing. It's a level playing field, right? And he said, oh, it's a level playing field, people, just not the one you think it's on. Right now, no matter what anyone thinks, it is a level playing field. And until something changes, until everyone has to play by a new set of rules and regulations, the game is the game.
I was laughing, and I don't know if you saw the show yesterday. I'm going to bring it up again, but there was a Notre Dame reporter when Mensah and Barcade committed who was like, yeah, I'm sure Miami did everything completely clean here. And I'm saying, listen, that's great to say if Notre Dame didn't offer Cooper Barcade $1 million plus before he entered the portal, right? And my point is this, Steve, and this is what you're saying too. Everyone has the opportunity to do the same exact thing right now. Miami is closing at a high rate with guys that are targeted by them. You can't get everywhere. The Jordan Seatons, you would have loved to have had him. It looks like you maybe as a player, really good player, good prospect, you might have avoided a situation.
Petey, you said it a couple of weeks ago, and you've alluded to it. The Miami roster was under assault. If you don't think people, other programs, are looking at that Miami depth chart and trying to pick guys off, making contact or back channeling, we're being naive. And guess what? We're big boys here. This is life in the big city. We're going to lose guys. We are. We have to deal with it. Easy come, easy go. As it relates to Jordan Seaton, I sent you and Danny Money in our group chat a clip from Matt McChesney, one of the leading voices of Colorado football. He's a 6-year NFL veteran. He's a proud Buffalo. And he went into some of the issues that he had with Jordan Seaton in terms of behavior and how he spent his NIL money. Turns out he wasn't all about ball. I actually think to a certain degree we may have dodged a bullet because, Peter, based on that particular clip, I believe Miami may have dodged a bullet.
Yeah, and look, I think Lane might be equipped to handle and deal with a guy like that in year one, where you can take a chance on it, right? But I think where we're at right now is a program with Mario and the guys that he's trying to bring in, and they have to meet a character threshold. Well, and look, I don't know the kid, right? I always like to, we can read stuff, and having been in the business, I know not everything is portrayed as such, but again, if you're bringing that into the locker room, you have to understand it'll probably have an effect on what's happening. And you made a good point a second ago too. And I have this title as Miami's Portal Hall. It might really be Miami's portal retention because of what you are able to. There's a couple guys I'm sure that you wish, if you're being greedy, as depth pieces or as guys that maybe could have taken next step. But overall, you have to be thrilled if you're a Miami fan, Steve.
Well, Peter, I tweeted this on Sunday, I believe. I was heading out to JB's house, and I just wanted to break something off real fast. I was very surprised. I think most of us, and you're much more of an insider than I am, I'm just a fan, we thought Jordan Lyle was going somewhere else. No hard feelings. It just didn't work out. And look, kids want carries. I get it. Or young men. And he flashed. When it was announced that alongside Pringle getting back into the fold and Jordan Lyle, and now we have a depth chart of 4 with Javion Mallory coming in, I thought that was an incredible job by the staff. And maybe it speaks to the culture of bringing everybody back. Let's look at the facts on Jordan Lyle. He flashed really well 2024 as a freshman. Has the all-time longest Miami run at the end of the USF game. He was good enough to win the job and actually got the first carries against Notre Dame. And he was still a guy that was a top 100 recruit who we had to flip from Ohio State in his process. And I'm sure there are a lot of teams reaching out to him. But to be able to retain him, and I think that's a key factor. You could talk all you want about the big name players that you pick up, the percentage of players that you retain that you actually want. I think that's actually an underrated factor of all of this.
And it leads to a lot of interesting off-season discussion too, right? Because someone this morning, for example, asked D Money and I about a Cole McConaughey. And it makes you think, hey, guy going on year 3, if he's still here, the staff, number 1, wants him to stay. Number 2, he's committed to getting over the injury situation that he had last year that really held him back. He was playing important snaps as a true freshman,
yes, he was,
Steve, but you kind of you forget about him in a sense because you're saying, well, he didn't do anything this year, so I'm not expecting anything out of him. Understood. But can this be an important piece as we talked about? Yeah. Listen, how much did we talk about last year? Hey, 16, 17 game season, maybe. It came to fruition, and then you're in a position where if Anthony Moten's down, you're screwed. You got into a dicey situation at defensive back, at corner, that you thought you were loaded there. You were, but you still had that long season. So it's an interesting thing to look at each guy on the roster who's maybe now been here for a couple years.
Petey, I have a theory now, because when I was growing up in the olden days, you had an 11-game regular season, which eventually became 12. So basically your job was to play 13 games, right? Then it expanded to 15. Now with the 12-team playoff, it could be 16 or 17. Let's go back to our season. I actually thought our health was really good.
Yeah.
But the ACC did that funny thing, and they do a funny thing every year with their schedule, but not in a ha-ha way. We have one bye week this year, and I think once again we finish up with 7 straight games on the back end. But if you go back to what we just saw, generally I thought Miami was a pretty healthy team. But even by the time we got to Virginia Tech and Blacksburg, you saw it, Pete. We started to fray at the edges physically. So the reality is, I believe every single position outside of maybe quarterback, you need to have one extra body than you thought you needed in the past, if not 2. And when it comes to defensive linemen, we're not talking about everyone playing 50, 60 snaps like Ruben Bain or Messenger. We're literally talking about, can your 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th guy give you maybe 5 to 6 snaps? Because that matters. And once again, if you look at the Miami schedule, after that one bye week, I believe in early October, all the way through to Thanksgiving weekend at Pitt, and then I expect us to be in the ACC title game, there's a shot Miami could be playing 8 straight weeks of football on the back end of that schedule. Every body counts.
And I don't even want to get into. I don't even want to look this far ahead, Steve. But it's like
we still got spring ball here.
I know. I don't even want to say what I'm going to say. But it's like, imagine you drop one during the season and then you win the ACC, but you don't get a bye,
right?
And then you got to play an extra game again. Which, going through the gauntlet this year, I know what people said about having the first round bye, but give it to me, please. I want one less game. Yeah. It was an arduous journey. It was not. That wasn't an easy path.
Petey,
it's never going to be easy.
Petey, it turned out not winning the ACC was actually a blessing for Miami. They needed that bye week going into Kyle Field. No doubt about that. And I just, again, we could talk about this all throughout the spring, going into summer and the fall camp, but I believe that blowouts matter. I am not a believer in just win. You try to go 1-0 every week, but the way you develop depth organically, put up 45 points in the first 2-3 quarters, empty the bench, keep everybody happy, give everybody a role. Everybody says they get to go play. The parents aren't going to have their concerns, right? And then this way, you need some tough games. It's like boxing. Not every fight can be a 1-round stoppage, but not every fight should be a 12-round war. There is this middle ground, and with the way this offense, I believe, can be constructed, it is built for blowouts here and there.
Real quick before we get to the offense, as you are the historian here on Canes Inside, we had a comment here from Greenwich, 220 Greenwich. He said, this feels like 01 or 02 when people thought we lost so much. We also had a ton of returning plus additions. Obviously, there's not going to be an exact comparison, but any offseason or any sort of kind of transitional year that you're thinking of over your
let's go back.
History?
So 2000 was the final year of Butch Davis, and we win the Sugar Bowl over a very talented Florida squad. I believe the score is 37-20, but there was a reality. Even if Butch Davis didn't leave, we lost maybe the program's most decorated middle linebacker in Dan Morgan, a guy that developed into a very dominant, effective defensive tackle in Damian Lewis. He was a first-round draft choice. And maybe the best pair of wideouts in tandem in Reggie Wayne and Santana Moss. But it turns out it was the beginning of something very special because certain guys came back, namely Ed Reed, Bryant McKinney. The only difference is that team had Commander Ken Dorsey back in charge because he played as a true freshman in 99, and we went on a memorable 3-year stretch with him. So there are some similarities. But again, I go back to this, the retention. I think that is absolutely key for this squad.
Agreed. You heard Joey said, yep, it's crucial that we beat these teams we're supposed to beat, how we're supposed to beat them, so more players can get snaps. And it's not, appreciate the comment, Joe, great meeting you a couple weeks ago. I think it's that you have that first half against Syracuse, where Stanford also those like you can't look at the result of the game. You still end up winning by however many points. But
Yeah.
you aren't with the way that you start that game. You're under some pressure there in the second half, where it's not until the last drive or two you can get these guys involved. You wish you'd give them a full quarter.
And sometimes you got to get everybody involved, guys. I'll just lay it out there since they're not there anymore. I'm gonna. Oh God, I hope I don't get into trouble. I hope I don't break any truth here. But I'm at the Cotton Bowl tailgate, and everyone's having a good time. And someone who I've gotten to know because he watches the Coach JB show is Popo Aguirre's father. And I met him last year at Georgia Tech. Very nice guy. And so he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, how you doing?" We're talking. And look, he told me, "Hey, look, man, I don't know. My son's not getting a lot of snaps." And I'm like, "Mr. Aguirre, with all due respect, I mean, we're in the playoffs here. Your son's playing a role. He's developing. Let's let this play out." So when Mr. Aguirre says this is not about the money, he's not lying. I don't think his situation was just financial. I think they wanted 100%. A chance and an opportunity to play more snaps. And once Mohamed Touré got that extra year of eligibility, this was a fait accompli, unfortunately. And that is now the new college football, for better or worse.
Yeah, 100%. And Popo was a leader in that locker room. Yeah. I think guys understand. They're not looking at him like, "Man, you're leaving us." It's unfortunate, but I agree 100% with that sentiment. Getting to know Popo a little bit, and I think we always wish that we want a JoJo Trader, a Chance Robinson to have success. Like, for whatever reason, it just did not work out here, right? I think JoJo needs this fresh start. Chance struggled to get healthy, and then gets healthy and has some pretty good receivers there in front of him.
Let me give you an example. And I think this may have been your freshman year, or you may have still been at Columbus. We had a defensive back. I think he played at Booker T. I think his name was Devon Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And Devon Johnson.
Well, he was a receiver. Yeah,
right,
he was a receiver.
Positions. He kept going back and forth. And finally, in his last year, I think it was 2012, he became a pretty good slot receiver.
Yeah, it was 2013. It was like my freshman year or my second year at UM, and I think he ended up getting hurt, which was unfortunate, where he missed a lot. But yeah, he ended up sticking with it and ended up being a good player.
But that was his fourth or fifth year in the program, right? And he never really made an impact. You kind of knew he was a good athlete based on his history, and you felt like, man, it's just not going to happen. I don't know if those stories exist anymore, because here's the reality on both ends. He, in this era, may have been processed out, or he may have said, "I'm not getting any opportunities. I need to leave." But back then, this young man stuck with it, and he delivered some key plays. I remember the Georgia Tech comeback when we were getting blown out. Then we were blowing them out. Then they came back, and that was the Stephen Morris game.
Yeah, I was at that game. Yeah,
Bobby Dodd. I don't know if nowadays there is this reality. Number one, if you get paid and you have an NIL package, there is an expectation of production. And from day one, whether it's a practice, whether it's a walkthrough, whether it's a drill, young men, I want you to know one thing. Eyes are on you. How you behave, how you act, how you perform, the effort you give. People are making judgments on, do we stick with this kid? That's the reality. I know it's harsh, but we have to be honest about this. Used to be, if you just took up a scholarship, they would allow you to grow a little bit and go through the growing pains and go through the maturation process. More than ever, I really believe it is about production.
Well, I'll give you one who's pretty much the closest thing to it right now on Miami's roster. How about Ahmad Moten?
Yes.
Because we remember the playoff run and how the season finished off for him, but we were still before the season saying, hey, we really think he's going to be that consistent guy and can take a leap, but it wasn't there yet. And then, I mean, he's going on year 5, 6 now.
Yeah.
So that'd be the close thing. But that's why I bring up a Cole McConaughey. So because I'm like, you know what? Maybe he becomes a contributor this year. He's good, and he's a guy going on year 3, but becomes a contributor and then just keeps elevating. Will probably have a medical red shirt from this last year because he didn't play enough. So it's just those sort of stories that I think now in the spring where you have obviously a lot of these Bain, Mesidor gone, but a Chase Smith and a Mo Toure shouldn't be getting too many reps in the spring. Let the vets rest their legs up.
Right. And look, this is now a gauntlet. This is more of a marathon than ever. If you're going to make another deep playoff run, you need probably 75 to 80 some odd guys that you know can play a specific role. And McConaughey, maybe he's one of those guys that plays in the third and fourth quarters of games with the 17, 21-point lead where you say, you know what? You're not going to scrape against the run. Your job is to rush the passer. Well, it would help if we put up a lot of points early. But the roster retention now is more difficult than ever. JB and I talk about this a lot, that there used to be an expectation during the Butch Davis years. You kind of knew there's 15 to 25 players that are going to graduate, right? And then you bring in 15 to 25 players in a new class. That's the cycle. Nowadays, men like Mario Cristobal and anyone else that runs a program, you literally have to make an evaluation and a judgment and re-recruit 100 guys every single year. So the fact that Miami was able to have this level of retention coming off a national championship run, I think is a testament to what's going on there right now.
Certainly easier to retain off a championship run than struggles. So everyone, I think we all have to again say this: your place in the totem pole in this thing is going to determine a lot of that. And Miami right now is up there, Steven. It's a beautiful thing to see here, and that's hopefully going to continue. So, Steve, really want to get into here the offense, right? We've talked about just the portal in general here the first 20 minutes or so, but Darian Mensah, I mean, really gets you closer to, I think, the offense we saw with Cam Ward, but at the same time, we have to keep in the back of our minds, you have those 4 running backs that we were just talking about. So the expectations going into this year nationally are going to be sky high. Offensive line, we can get into that a little bit as well. But you had some tweets, and I'll pull it up now to show, where you said you expected this offense to be 45 plus.
Yeah, and we did that 2 years ago. I mean, that was the offense. I know everyone wants to doubt Shannon Dawson's ability to construct and coordinate a unit, but we did that 2 seasons ago. 45 points, number 1 in the country by a pretty good margin. Here's the issue, or the statement I want to make. Mensah does not have to be Cam Ward. Let's be realistic. Cam Ward was the number 1 pick in the draft. I'm not so sure I see that type of ceiling with Mensah. What Mensah has to be a top 10 quarterback. Much like Carson Beck, as long as Carson Beck can hover around being a top 10 quarterback and be able to play complementary football, Miami's going to be okay. Mensah's a little bit more dynamic, I believe, a little bit more of a freewheeling gunslinger at times. There's going to be, I believe, much more RPO. I watched a lot of Duke highlights last year, just recently. The RPO was not a factor with Carson Beck for whatever reason. I don't remember a lot of it being run. Also, up-tempo. I'm not asking for us to be Art Briles circa 2011 and 12, but a little bit of tempo, I believe, can help out a inexperienced, ever-evolving offensive line early in the year. Also, when you have the type of weapons and you have depth at certain positions, I know the goal is not to keep everyone happy, but I want more plays so I can get the ball to my playmakers more often, every game possible. But to go back, I think it's all tied together. Alex Mirabel, and I don't even count 2022. Can he put together a line that is somewhere in the neighborhood of what we have seen the past 3 years at Miami? That's the key.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of mix matching that goes on here in the spring. We know Mirabel loves to do the cross training. Yeah, and I think there's unproven guys. You have to trust that a guy like Jamal Merriweather from Georgia, who hasn't played a whole ton of football. He was a rotational piece for them, but they believe has some inside-outside versatility. Coming in at 6'7", 310 plus with some movement abilities. Yeah, and just talking to people around Georgia, they believe he's coming to Miami to get coached up by these guys. That's and we get scared off sometimes. He'll be a third, fourth year guy now. He hasn't been just like a 1 year guy. So we get scared off by, hey, why hasn't this guy played? But I think Mirabal looks at it and says, I just took Markel Bell from JUCO.
Yeah.
And this guy was playing at Georgia. Bring him on down.
Peter, so let's take a look at the line. Cantwell is a day one starter. Okay. You know, one of your guards is going to be Samson Okunlola. Center's going to be Ryan Rodriguez. And I'm pretty good with Ryan. People forget he was our opening day starter in 2024 going into Gainesville, right? So the question becomes, where does Merriweather fit in? And then also, do we think or do we believe, and this is going to be one of the great questions for Maribel, does Matt McCoy have the feet to be a left tackle?
Well, and then if you say he does, right?
Yeah.
Who's playing the other guard spot?
God, it's interesting.
But that's why you have Merriweather could be a swing guy. He could be that six offensive lineman that Markel Bell started his career as, and then ended up becoming the man very quickly here. Go ahead.
And Peter, you talked about it. You think Reese Woodlow?
Yeah, Reese Woodrow, the freshman, it looks like a guy who could be a future center here. JJ Sparks, a lot of excitement about him as well. I think, Steve, it's going to be a lot of it comes down to McCoy and Cantwell.
Right.
Because Cantwell, I'm not going to count out left tackle for him if he can deal with speed right away, because then you can just keep McCoy and Sampson at the guard spots, Rodriguez at center, Merriweather right tackle. But that's then your bookends are also a little bit more unproven at that point. So
yeah, then I think you got some other names like Sparks and Buchanan.
Buchanan, I think, has a really good chance to be a starting guard here, man.
I saw an interview that Maribel did about, I think it was before the 24 season. And I always learn something when I see an interview with Coach Maribel. And it was during the media days in fall camp when you guys are all allowed to kind of talk to everybody. And I learned something here. He says, let me just tell you something, guys. I go into every game on a regular year. Most offensive line coaches have about 7 guys that they're comfortable playing. In other words, if a left guard goes down, that doesn't necessarily mean you're bringing another left guard. You have to shuffle everything. And I'm sure these guys have spreadsheets where they probably have 58 different combinations they've tried out to figure out that, hey, not everyone has a backup. If one guy goes down, I may have to shuffle 2 spots to get with the combination that I like. And he said, and if you're really, really good, and this is rare, Maribel says you have 8 or 9 guys maybe you can play, but generally it's about 7 that you're really comfortable. So the question then becomes, and this is one of the players that we lost that I like physically, and again, I'm not out there at practice, Tommy Kinsler might be a loss.
Yeah.
Because he's big. He looks the part.
I said the same thing this morning to D, because I said, look, you really had on last year's line 8 guys that I thought that could really play not anywhere in the country, but that could play at most places. And he was like, oh, who's the third guy? I know we had Rodriguez and Sampson as that platoon with McCoy, but I said Kinsler, and he said, yeah, but he just wasn't at this point. He hadn't, I guess, I don't know if it was matured or gotten himself to where he needed to be yet. But at the same time, he said there's also a reason he ended up at Ole Miss, which that's kind of my line of thinking as well with it. So we'll see how bad of a loss that ends up being. You know how this stuff goes with the retention, Steve. If they really, really wanted to pursue that one, they probably would have gotten it done. So I think it shows you what they valued there. But
yeah, the offense, in my view, again, there should be some RPO elements, the inverted triple option stuff, where instead of pitching it out, you're throwing it forward. Him and Barkate were really good at that. Barkate's going to be a guy that really complements Malachi, Tony Well. So, and also I'm glad Josh Moore came back. I know everyone's doing the re-signing thing. Josh Moore flashed. Big bodied guy. I think they take the top off the defense. But the increased explosiveness outside with Cam Vaughn and Dre Jacobs. Peter, if you look at the offense last year, and this was a common theme, as good as it was at times, it lacked explosive plays and it bogged down the offense. We have to be a little critical here. Every game Miami lost this year, it was by 6 or less points. Also, in those 3 losses, they did not score more than 21 in any game. And in the playoffs, I think they had 2 halves where they did not score at all. So there's a lot of meat on the bone here for this offense moving forward. It has to be a more explosive, big play unit, and whether that's from a schematic standpoint or just having guys that could take the top off the defense or hit home runs more consistently. So I looked at this year's offense as being good. It was good. It's probably among the top 30% in the country. The expectation and the hope is with Mensa, you more or less move into the top 10 to 15.
Yeah, I think the offense this year, Steve, they executed at a high level, but they had to. Like they didn't have as much margin for error because on the outside, you were lacking something. I think the guys were solid, but as to your point, and these long seasons show a lot of stuff on film as well, which when you lack some of that outside explosiveness, I think it hurts. But you said it, man. I'm pumped up about this receiver group because Jacobs, to me, is someone that there's a lot left there in terms of his upside. I just keep going back to the Clemson game and some of the stuff he was putting on tape there. That was, I don't know how many guys on Miami's roster this year would be capable of doing some of the stuff he did in that game. But Barkate, we understand what he is. How about Dalen Upshaw? Another young guy as well there. And then you got to expect a Milan Paris, a Samorian Wingo, who came in and was playing Jeremiah Smith on the scout team, Ohio State week. He's gotten some people excited early. You're adding Vance Spafford to the mix. So you're almost 9-10 deep of guys there.
Peter, I'm going to tell you this right now. And I'm not saying we go full-blown Mouse Davis here as I show my age. There are certain games or certain segments of games I'd go 5 wide empty. I would just put Mensa in a gun. I'd say, we're going to do this for a couple of drives. We can run the ball later. Again, because I'm a big believer, me and Bill Walsh, of establishing points. 5 wide empty. I'm just telling you, run and gun.
It's going to be interesting, man, because at the same time,
you have a lot of running backs. I know.
I still think that, right. And the more I think about it, I'm like, I definitely agree with that, but you're going to have formations where you may have a lot of 2 running backs, a Fletcher with a Pringle, a Pringle with a Lofton in the backfield, right? And that's the sort of stuff that if you're Shannon Dawson, you can probably beat teams a multitude of ways this year. Again, it was pretty much the same style that Miami won these games this year.
Petey, tight end, Luka Gilbert. I hope, pray, expect for him to make a good second-year jump, right? Who's the other tight end besides Lofton then? Is it Jackson Carver? Or is it Gavin Mueller?
It could be Gavin Mueller. He looks the part physically. Yeah. I think one of those two, between him and Briggs coming in, the 2 freshmen, one of them is going to have to step up to be some sort of pass catcher. Luka Gilbert, they seem to have a lot of faith in to be your traditional inline tight end there. I've mentioned Jackson Carver a few times because he's another one. Mentioned Cole McConaughey. How about Jack? Let's throw Jackson Carver in that mix of guys who have been around. There's a reason he's still here. I've seen him walking around. See, he had a bad knee injury. I've seen him walking around though. Big dude. Like, and from what I understand and what I've heard, coordinate. And this may not say we're setting a low bar here, but coordinated, tough, strong. To be an extra blocking tight end, you're gonna need a body like that this year.
Yeah.
Now, do you have that? Who's that dynamic guy who can stretch the field for you vertically, who can get up the seam? I personally think it's going to have to be one of those 2 freshmen because Lofton is a different. And I know you do the same thing with him. We put him in a different category. He's not that guy and he's done it. He scored that, what was it, against Pitt, scored a touchdown up the seam there. He can do different things like that. I'm not saying it's not in his skill set, but he's a smaller guy. I want him more in the backfield, getting out in the flat, getting him isolated on linebackers where he has those option routes. So that's still, to me, going to be a position that a lot of stuff needs to work itself out there.
Yeah, and as for Briggs, who's out here from Southern California, very light. I look at him as a move tight end, almost like an H-back type. You got to motion out, flex out a little bit. I get the sense that he's probably
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I don't know if he's as fast.
Not as fast, but
very smooth, catches the ball well. I get the sense he may be in line for a redshirt year if people even do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you can play a few games still, so maybe you get him involved in some of those early games. I know they're a big fan of the athlete. Mueller looks. I gotta find this. Yeah, I'm sure you saw which I love the freshmen coming in, giving their official heights and weights and all that. But look at this right here. And Steve, listen, you're in the boxing world, so I'm sure you can eye up a lot of these things and see that they are legit. He says 6'6", 260, 11% body fat.
Wow.
And you can see he's carrying the weight well. So from a physical and tight end is more, it's more up here than people realize, because you can't just be a receiver or a blocker. If you're going to ask a guy to come in, it's such a telltale sign if it's a weakness, right, as to what sort of play it is. The physicals I'm not really concerned with. It's how quickly does he pick things up here?
Yeah, if there's any coach that believes in body types more than Mario Cristobal, I've yet to see him. There's no team that looks better getting off the airplane or the bus than any team constructed by Cristobal.
Hey, it seems to be working. We've come a long way, right?
Yeah.
That's been probably one of the biggest issues. And look, this is the game management stuff. I think we saw a big leap in this year, right? I mean, you've been critical of it at times. I think everyone has, but this offense, man, Shannon Dawson's gonna have some fun with it. I really think so.
It should be an offense. Again, last year's offense, Pete, he scored about 32 to 33 points a game, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
This one, the goal should be a full touchdown more. That should be the baseline, 40 points. And I just draw it like, look, that's 10 points a quarter. And obviously that's skewed when you play certain teams. You'll put up a 28, you'll put up 17. But again, if you look at the games Miami lost this season, you had dead quarters and dead halves with nothing. If you want to win a championship, your offense has to give you a little bit more consistent production.
No doubt about it. Steve, anything else you want to hit?
Well, defensively, linebacker. I don't believe Torrey and Chase Smith need a lot of reps. I want to see some young linebackers or three step up and make a move. I know there's a lot of internal optimism over J.J. Edwards. Jordan Campbell, certainly a very good athlete. If there is an area where you want increased athleticism on this Miami defense, it is a linebacker unit. We're going to need a young guy to really step up and say, hey, look, I'm planting the flag. I'm going to be a player. I'm part of the rotation. Also, the other thing, talk about retention. The fact we're bringing back all four cornerbacks, I think is great. I don't think there's a deeper cornerback room with quality players quite like Miami going into 2026.
No. A linebacker, another guy, Bobby Pruitt. Can he take that? Can he take that next step? Because we've heard so much about him, and he had some nice package substitutions that he was involved in there. But you talk about athleticism and speed. He's just that. At corner, I agree, Steve. It was you need those guys to stay healthy because you've had some issues there with OJ and Damari. But I'm glad that they understand, even though, because all guys want to play and be the man, right? But you're still getting. They all played a lot. They all are getting a lot of film for the next level. Damari, let's see the role because he could be a tremendous nickel, but he's also really played primarily on the outside. Outside of his freshman year, he was playing in the nickel when he first got on the field. But yeah, just the roles and the usages of them moving forward will be very interesting because you still have a Jabari Antoine,
Yes,
for example. There, you have a Jalen Waters coming in who's going to be pushing because he's a high level talent. So, still excited about that.
The safety depth is a little concerning. I know that they picked up Conrad Hussey. We'll see if Dylan Day is ready to play a more of a role as a safety. By the way, it's funny. Dylan Day's brother watches all the shows. Shout out to him. Say hello. And I told him this was after the Cotton Bowl. Everyone's celebrating, and he came up to me. I thought Dylan Day as a special teams gunner was really good. Thought he became a guy that really understood how to like down punts and hit people. And I told the younger brother, I said, hey, tell your brother to watch Steve Tasker, who is the greatest gunner I have ever. And I said, I know you don't know who he is. He played way back in the olden days, but I said, tell your brother he can find a role and a job in the National Football League just by being good at one thing. And special teams is important. By the way, Miami's got to get better at special teams. You saw what happened in the national title game. So a reminder to Dylan Day's brother, Steve Tasker, look him up on YouTube, a brilliant gunner, one of the best I've ever seen, maybe the best ever, actually.
He's close, man. I like Dylan. He had that almost pick against Ole Miss. It could have been a pick. Like, can you imagine? I'm just in terms of the like what the fans' view of him is. If he gets that one done, you're thinking, man, what a great job by a guy who's a rotational piece who makes a big play. He's close, Steven. He's had a couple other moments like that. Did he get penalized against Notre Dame for hitting CJ Carr on the go? I think. Well,
remember the shot he had against Florida State on the punt return? Woo!
Oh no, he's been. I'm telling you, like guy. He's got something to him. He didn't play all that much from scrimmage his freshman year. So he's just another. Everyone we all as fans want. You want first round picks. You want these guys who are right away ready to go. Malachi Toney's setting the world on fire. It's not realistic.
Yeah, look, I hope Dylan's one of these kids that stays with this, young men who stays with this 4 to 5 years, gets his degree, and say, hey, I had a great experience. You know. Yeah. By the way,
thank you, Lance Guidry. By the way, on that one.
How do you think things are going on the recruiting front? Are we getting that national championship game bump, that proof of concept we've talked about, Petey?
Yeah, it's so early. The coaches are just now really getting out on the road. Steve, the last week and a half after the game, they started on Wednesday. And I think at this point, you're still trying to figure out what's the board looking like, who's going to be our top guys. But there's such a credibility behind it now.
So hold on, Petey. You're saying we might actually get a class next cycle that you'd approve of. So you're saying.
I want top 7, man. I at one point I was top 5, Steve. At one point I was top 3.
Oh wow!
Give me top 7.
All right, hold on. 7. Before I leave here, speaking of recruiting, let's bring up the graphic.
Let's do it. Here we go.
All right, so one of the highlights of the weekend, obviously hanging out at Duffy's with you and Anthony and some other people, great fans on Sunday. But on Saturday, we had a get-together, and I got to spend some time with the great Don Solinger, one of the most honest, and some would say not good, but I'd say a great recruiter. And I was talking to Don, and this is a famous story I'm sure people know. His whole recruiting pitch, no matter who it was, it could be the best player in the country, it could be a top 500, it could be a guy they're slow playing. He'd be in the living room with another coach. And his message was always the same. And he gave this message to Clinton Portis, among other players. Everyone's out there telling these kids what they want to hear and the parents about how great they are. You're going to play early. We're going to send you to the NFL. Oh, but not the Sarge. Not the Sarge. He keeps it 100, as the kids say. His baseline message was, hey, bro, I mean, you're good and everything. That's why we're here. But I just want to let you know. You may not play. You may not. I mean, we got studs now that barely get on the field. But if you want to work hard, we'll help you through it. But I just want you to know guarantees. And it'd be the craziest thing because the coach that was always with them, as soon as they got in the car, they'd be like, Saul, what are you doing? And Coach Solinger told me, he goes, Steve, I would never lie to a kid. Never. It ain't happening because these kids have to know the reality. I don't even know if you could recruit like that nowadays because right off the bat, that message is not going to play. So Solinger's telling me this great story. The great Rusty Medeiros from the pride of the Ozarks, all the way in Missouri. Never knew this story, but Coach Solinger was actually the guy that was kind of his lead recruiter. And he said, Steve, it was the easiest recruiting job ever. And I go, what happened? He goes, one day he calls. This is in 88, Jimmy's last year. We didn't know it then. Rusty Medeiros calls the office, and he gets hooked up to Solinger's line. And Coach Sol goes, hello? And he goes, yeah, hey, Coach, I don't know who you are, but I'm Rusty Medeiros. I'm from the Ozarks in Missouri. He goes, yeah, I really like Miami. I'm getting offers here from the West Coast, Washington, this school, Missouri, but I really like Miami. So Sol goes, okay, all right, well, why don't you send your tape up here? Let me give you the address. So about a week later, the tape comes in, and they really like Rusty. Good motor, great get off. So Jimmy looks at the tape and goes, okay, you know what? We got other guys on the board. All right, he'll be on the list. Coach Sol goes, we never called him again. So National Letter of Intent Day comes. They had completely forgotten about Medeiros, they had said. So finally, everyone's kind of milling around. And they go, hey, Coach, you got a phone call. So Solomon goes, yeah, hello. Coach, this is Rusty Medeiros. Oh, yeah, Rusty, how you doing? Well, I'm ready to sign. So Solinger says, oh, yeah, hold on, wait a minute. Let me call you back. He runs into Jimmy's office. Hey, Coach, that Medeiros guy just called. What do I tell him? So Jimmy looks at the board. He goes, well, that guy decommitted. That guy took some money from there. That guy has no grades. He goes, yeah, you know what, Don? Tell him he's in. Tell him what's his fax, and we'll send him a paper. And that's how we got Rusty Medeiros.
Man, it's
that's
goes
how it
without
happened.
saying it's changed so much, man, because
it is. Another great Solinger story. So there's another thing that I think just really you can't do anymore. A lot of these players nowadays, if you tried to switch positions, I believe the players themselves, the agents or the lawyers, and the advisors be like, no way, we're out of here, even if it's good for the player. So Randy Bethel was a really good tight end. He does the Canes for Life tailgate every week. Really great guy. And his son played, Pat Bethel, during the Mark Richt era.
Vero Beach.
And I always wondered, why did Randy Bethel as a tight end wore not 93? That was unusual. Him and Chudzinski were a very good duo. Well, it turns out he was a defensive tackle. So one day, Solinger says, I'm walking around the office, and Jimmy Johnson goes, Coach, get over here. He goes, yeah. Jimmy has a football in his hands. And he goes, hey, Solly, tosses him the football. He goes, see if Bethel can catch the football. And at that point, Solinger, when he coached for Johnson, was linebacker, and it was a linebacker coach, really. So he says, okay. So he goes in the locker room, and he finds Randy. He goes, Randy, you have to play catch with me. He goes, what? He goes, yeah, just come out here and play catch. So they're playing catch for like 10 minutes, having him run routes. And Randy Bethel told me, he goes, Steve, I had no idea why a coach who does not coach my position is playing catch with me out in the rain. So
tryout right there.
Yeah, oh, they're playing catch. So all right, he goes, all right, thanks, Randy. Whatever happens, I'll see you tomorrow. So Solinger goes in with the football. He goes, hey, Coach, you got Jimmy. He goes, Jimmy, he can catch. Pretty natural hands, good athlete. And Jimmy goes, okay, now that's good now. All right, Don, tell him that's your new tight end. Just tell him he switched positions. So I asked Randy, Randy, was there any talk of you transferring? He goes, what? Back then? He goes, no. You were
Listen,
like the way it was. You just stood there.
There was once the inverse conversation that happened between Al Golden and David Njoku. I'll tell you guys that story next time.
Yeah, he wore number 50 for a day or two, by the way. Brad Kaya told me that story. But that story, Coach Solinger is the best. You guys got to get Coach Sol. He has so many great stories. He's the best.
Steve, you know my dad. Coach Solinger was his PE coach at Southridge High School. My dad was the first graduating class of Southridge, 1979. Wow. So
that must have been a great honor to have Solinger just like scream at him. Wow.
Yep. There you go. Wow. So it's crazy, man. Steve, this is gonna be a fun off season though, because we got it's about to be February here. We got NFL finishing up now. next weekend, but we would normally have been done so long ago that everything's been compressed. Spring's not going to start until late March.
Good.
So give these guys some real rest after that grueling year. It's like a pro season, and you see how much of an off season the pros get. So it's not going to be the same thing, but I think there's really going to be an element of managing these guys' bodies here moving forward. I'm just looking forward to hearing about a lot of the progress of the young guys' big freshman class. So,
and you're hearing great things about them early on. Again, none of them have padded up. They have not played a down of football, but I think it was such a valuable experience for the program.
That is not true. Actually, they have been in practice, a lot of them, so they have been getting some. They have been getting more. And it's funny you say that, because I was talking to Danny about it yesterday. I was like, hey, I think these guys are looking good early, and he was like, yeah, but remember, we don't know until they really get into practice. These are workouts. I was like, that's not true. You had most of these guys actually practicing with the team.
Look, we didn't like the last game, but that whole experience of the playoffs from mid-December to mid-January, I think is going to pay off for years.
I just saw, and I'll let you go after this, Steve. I just saw J.J. Sparks, freshman lineman, for example, post some pictures from the last few weeks here, and he's posting pictures walking in the Cotton Bowl with his gear on, like pregame, and I'm thinking, what's it gonna? I know he didn't play in the game, but what's it gonna be like when he walks into Stanford week 1 next year? And again, he didn't play the game, completely different thing, but it's gonna be like, okay, well, I've already seen what it's supposed to look like at the highest level. This shouldn't phase a lot of them because they've been exposed to it.
I was told that Mario Cristobal all throughout the playoffs traveled everybody. People that normally didn't travel, he made sure that, hey, this was his way of saying, guys, this is the new normal. Do not make vacation plans. You're not going on winter break. This is the new normal. Get used to this. I think this was an invaluable experience for everybody in that building. It was great.
The entire operation.
Yes.
The entire operation.
Get used to this.
You're right about that. Yep, because remember, you've got recruiting personnel who had to deal with portal stuff while the run was going on, managing all of that. Remember, Steve, there were some people questioning why Miami wasn't aggressive early in the portal. And what we were saying is, hey, look, they're trying to retain some guys. You don't want to ruffle too many feathers here. You still got some time. You still want to go win these games and not mentally get these guys too messed up. You had already lost to Dante Simpson, who was actually probably going to see some snaps, especially with Bowden's injury. But now we look back on it 3 weeks later here and we say, okay, that's why they played it the way they did. They still got who they wanted, and you protect the guys in the roster you want to keep.
Retention. There's no denying it. Retention matters.
Until they change the rules, my friend.
Yes.
Until they change the rules. Steve Kim, man, great stuff from you today, as always. And we'll be talking this offseason, I'm sure. So appreciate the time, man. This is going to be a fun. I can't wait for all the film breakdowns. They've already been great, the stuff I've seen from Mensa, but it's just like you've got a lot of stuff to sift through. And I really want to go back and watch his Tulane stuff too. So I haven't done enough of that.
It should be a fun, explosive offense. And there's no reason why. But again, the offensive line, spring ball is going to be key. But again, in Maribel, we trust.
Yes, sir. All right, Steve. Let the people know where they can find you, by the way.
Well, if you want an inordinate amount of tweets clouding up your timeline, you can go to Steve Kim 323 and Ode to East LA, Orale. And also on Instagram, Steve Orale Kim. I post a lot of boxing stuff there. I do my show with Mario Lopez called The 3 Knockdown Rule. I'm on with Jason Whitlock on Fearless. And the Coach JB and Smitty show with the infamous Coach Jason Brown.
Steve, thank you. We'll talk soon.
See you.
Always great stuff there from Steve K9 Kane Kim. You guys can also see a lot of his stuff. He posts a lot on Kane's Insight website. Of course, always remember to go to canesinsight.com. 7.9 million posts and counting. Yeah, great stuff there with Steve. Going to be a lot of discussions like that this offseason. We'll be very guest heavy this offseason, guys. Let us know who you want to hear from. You know, we have Amon Richards on all the time, and Malik Rozier is going to be coming on a lot more with us as well. So remember to always hit us up in the comments section with suggestions and let us know who you guys want to hear from here on Canes Insight Daily. Again, if you're newer to this channel, to this show, we go live every day, 9 a.m. And we also have some afternoon special stuff going on here all the time here on Canes Insight. Mario, I've seen you ask about Malachi Tony a couple times. There's nothing up with him, man. He's here. He's still in Miami. He's gearing up. Should be ready to go win the Heisman Trophy next year, I think. So nothing going on with him. He was out there in the pictures with Mensa and Barcade on their visit. So welcoming them to Miami, and you know he's excited about getting to play with those guys. So wanted to thank the law offices of Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733 to take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. All right, guys. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. Keep it locked on Canes Insight. Have tomorrow afternoon going to be doing an afternoon show as well. Going to be announcing a new partnership I've got going on here. The daily show is going to remain every day, D-Money and I, 9 a.m. But you'll be seeing a lot of stuff here in the afternoon coming soon. So keep it locked on Canes Insight. Hit that like and subscribe to the channel. Go Canes.